couple of things I'm going to show you today. I have a special request from Lisa Lindsay about making fire in wet conditions and different types of shelter you can make with a tarp and some paracord. So, heading out to my friend's farm right now, and we'll go wander off into the woods and do a little demonstration. So, here we go. Howdy. Good. Is it cool if I pull back there?
I think so. They may be in your way, but just I'll count.
Okay. This'll work. Alright, let me grab my stuff and we'll get going. Alright, here we are. I have the items that I normally carry, but today I also brought this bag with me. It's got a few little items in it. It's what I usually like to take when I go camping. If I'm going to go wander out into the woods for a few days. I got all kinds of nice tents and sleeping bags and all that stuff, but I find that more often than not I like the minimal sort of style of camping and practicing some of the other. Oh, forgot one thing that I wanted to show you guys. Grab that real quick. Yeah, I personally prefer to not carry a ton in the way of gear. One, because I'm lazy and don't like carrying all the extra weight, but also because I like kind of challenging myself when I don't actually need to survive with nothing, so that if the time ever comes where I do have to get by in a bind, I can, because it's not really that much different than what I'm used to. This is gonna make a fucking mess. I found, let's see, now you guys can see me. Found a couple of these while I was out walking the dogs earlier. I figured this would work. I'll, as far as some tinder, I think you guys can see anything, can you? So, like I was saying, today I'm going to do a video at the request of Lisa Lindsay about starting fire in wet conditions and a couple different ways of setting up a tarp as a shelter. I do a lot of primitive shelter building where I bring nothing and find all the materials out and about, but if you're planning to go somewhere, a tarp makes it so much easier. So I have a bunch of different bags for different occasions, and almost all of them have a tarp. In my little personal survival kit, I keep an emergency blanket that could be used as a tarp, or one of the things that I have in this bag back here, even if you don't have a tarp, if you've got a trash bag, those work pretty well as far as you can create shelter, you can create a poncho, you can carry stuff. Basic black trash bag is pretty useful. So I always have one of those around, either in my bag or sometimes I'll just stick it in my back pocket with a handkerchief. Let's see what else in the bag that I brought today, just since we've got some time to kill while I'm walking. I have a pretty inexpensive 5x7 tarp, just a generic Walmart one. I actually like the Walmart ones more than some of the ones that I found online because of the location of the grommets. They're on the shorter side. There's one right in the middle, which makes it nice for making like a little A-frame type shelter. Let's see, I've got a Sawyer water filter in there, and ferro rod, my canteen and cook cup, with a little nested stove, basic first aid kit, and I think we're gonna go off the trail. Here we go. I'm sure I'll show you what all is in there when we get there. But so it's not really super wet out here, so starting a fire shouldn't be too challenging. It's not like it just rained. It rained yesterday, but not today. So what I'm going to do is, right back behind me there's a little creek. I'll find my materials and then we'll take it over there, dunk them in the water so they're nice and wet, and then I'll try and use them to make a fire. There's also an area right over here that I can probably find some pretty wet stuff because there's a little bit of standing water right over behind me. So I'll try and gather the materials from in there and then go give them a quick dunk just to make sure they're nice and wet. I will not be setting up a shelter right here. Obviously you don't want to put your shelter in the water, but let's see, looking for, there's a couple different ways to do it. I generally, if I can find a pair of trees, I like to use trees to put the shelter up. If not, you can tie it out, and I'll show you that in the field if there's no trees around. These two might work. We set up the camera and we'll get started with the shelter first. Alright, I got a couple trees, one right here and one right there, just little ones. Grab the tarp. First I'll show you the blade I brought with me. This is courtesy of my buddy Chris Tanner from Prepared Mind 101. The JX5 Vengeful One by Bark River. So this is the one that I like to take out when I come out to play. Oh, mosquitoes are horrible. Alright. I'm going to use bright orange cord in an escape and evasion type situation. You don't want to use something brightly colored, but for my purposes, it'll work just fine. And it'll keep me from clotheslining myself on it constantly. At least that's the hope. At the end of this real quick. Tie this about chest height, closer to my belly button probably, because I only brought the little tarp with me. And I'm going to tie it in a way such that I can pull it down quickly if I need to. Tarp real quick. And ordinarily, if I was going to be sleeping out here, I'd clear all the debris and all the sticks out of the way, but just for demonstration purposes, I'm not going to worry about it. also brought a bunch of these little D-rings or locking rings. I'm going to put those on the line so I have it evenly spaced and makes setting it up next time quicker. And for the back side, this type of shelter, this is what I would use if it's not going to rain and I'm not too terribly worried about getting wet. It's just real simple, one line across the top, and then I'll stick a couple stakes in the back. That'll give me some room that I can lay closer to the back and sit a little bit closer to the front and put a little fire in this general area. Far enough away, but close enough that it'll give me a little bit of warmth. This is probably the quickest and easiest. That you got plenty of room. You can sit right here. You have a fire going. You can lay back a little bit further underneath it, and if it rains, you'll stay pretty dry. It's not going to keep you as dry or as warm. It's not really a concern right now because it's not supposed to rain, and it's fairly warm out. But if it was, say it was going to rain, there's a couple other options, or if it was going to be kind of colder, I would probably go with a different style. So give me a second, and I'll pull the stakes out of the back, and we'll try it that way. So for this one, instead of having it in the top on one end, you're going to put it in the middle set. This is why I like using the little rings, because it makes it a lot easier to change the shelter type quickly. I'm going to have to adjust the string to put it lower to the ground, but you get the idea. So this time I'm going to put it, instead of belly button height, I'm going to put it around my knee, because again, this is a smaller tarp. It's only a 5x7. kind of the same thing I did before. Take your stakes and you'll pull one side out and down. And then from here, you have two options as far as how you can go with the shelter. If it's real cold, I would take another set of stakes and put it down like this. Here, I'll go ahead and do that and show you guys real quick. Over here. This is kind of what I tend to do when it's a little bit colder out. It's real low to the ground, there's not a whole lot of space to fill up, and if it rains you've got coverage on both sides. So if you need to, or if you want to, you can take either this set over here or the other side and pinch them together so it's only open on one side. Or sometimes what I'll do is just stack some debris across the line this way and just kind of fill in one side. But that's the second type. The third type will basically keep this the same, except we'll elevate this one side right here. So let me put the camera back and we'll show you that one. Alright, so for this one I'm going to use 2 more lengths of paracord at this end. Going to do roughly 6 feet. And we'll cut it in half and clean up both these ends as well. So for this one, we're going to need 2 sticks, probably about knee height, about the same height as where I tied it. So in a second I'll go grab a couple branches and I'll be right back. This right about here. Clearing off some of the leaves. Wonderful buckeye leaves that don't at all resemble pot plants. Alright. right next to a creek, which, among other reasons, you wouldn't want to put your camp necessarily right here. It's not if you're planning to stay and not get eaten alive. So, anyway, you will. Oh, I guess you can't see me. Let me get this one in, come back. Alright. Because I was not fortunate enough to find two pieces that were already split. I'm going to split this just a little bit. Just enough that I can wedge the paracord in there. This is how that style looks. Got a little angled back piece right over here, and then it slopes up just slightly. Gives you a little bit more room, a little bit more space. If it's not going to rain as much, you can opt for that if you don't want to go for the single angle, like that first one that I did. This is nice if it's going to rain a little bit, but it's not going to be too cold because you can get a little bit of breeze flowing through there. You've got a little bit more space, slightly larger footprint underneath, so you've got more room to put your gear. Still not quite tall enough that you can spread out and like sit up. If you would want to do something like that, this style would work if you were using, say, like a 10x10 or a 12x12, which is oftentimes what I will carry. I generally prefer the smaller ones just because I don't do a whole lot inside the shelter. I'm usually out and about, but this works quite well. One of the things you want to make sure that you do is, instead of bringing this line straight out this way, you kind of want to angle it this way so it keeps tension along this side. Same thing with this one. This one I did get a little fork in there, and you just follow the line down, tie it off, and put the stake through it. What I was doing with this other one where I split it, get the focus, I just put the paracord down through there so it doesn't fall out, but stays fairly stable. You've got enough room down in there. So those would be the three types that I do most often, is the little A-frame, the kind of elevated side A-frame like this is. I'm not really sure if that's what the technical name is, but if I've got one center line, like the second one I did, if I've got one center line and all four corners are staked down, I usually just call it an A-frame style. If I elevate one side, it's modified, or if it's just the single one-sided shelter that I had initially, that's more of just like a lean-to. I think there's probably technical names, and I'm sure somebody will correct me in the comments or bitch me out for it. Maybe not, we'll see. So those are the three that I like to do with just a tarp. Just for shits and giggles, let me pull this back a little bit, show you what else is in the bag. So one of the, oh shit. One of the things that I like to do a lot is I really enjoy hammock camping. So I have a little travel hammock that I will hang between a couple trees, and then you can either do the same style, any one of the shelters will work. Again, it depends on the rain. What I will usually do is the kind of like the A-frame style, so it's got both sides, For a hammock though, because this is a smaller tarp, when I do it that way, I have to go corner to corner. So you get kind of like the peaks that come down. With it being rectangular, they're a little bit offset, and you don't get great coverage with just a really small tarp like this. It'll keep you kind of dry, but it's not going to be as sufficient as like a large tarp, like a 10 by 10, something like that. If I'm going hammock camping, I'm going to be out for a while. A lot of times I'll take one of those, but for me personally, there's just something about the very minimal, just basics, and just enough to keep dry. If I get a little wet, then as long as it's not freezing, oh well, I'll dry out. But I also carry one of these a lot in the summer. Not practical in cooler climates, because the air blows right underneath you the whole time and you get cold. Even sometimes in the summer, if the temperature drops a little bit, you get pretty cold in the hammock without having something underneath. But if it's like it is now, where it's really hot and you're just sweating like crazy, it's a very viable option. It's a lot more comfortable than laying on the ground. So for the amount of space it takes up, I toss one in the bag. Let's see, I've got the rest of the paracord. Showed you the JX5. I also have a couple other assorted knives on me. I've got a Sawyer water filter. This is just a bag for it. Another little spool of 50-foot paracord. Trash bag I mentioned. And then my canteen. 1 quart Nalgene canteen with a, god damn, the bugs are horrible. A cook cup. This one has a little nested stove on top of it. Let me see if I can get that a little bit closer. So you get your fire, you can stick your sticks in here, a little air comes through here, and you can cook on it. Real basic, real simple, but if I were to get a fire going, just real small, I could cook on that, and it keeps it really directed and makes the fire a little bit more efficient than having a really big fire that you've got to try and set the coals on with this. And it also, if you're in a position where you need to minimize the like the amount of light that you're putting out, or you're worried about being seen from, say I was just off the road, you don't want anybody on the road to see you, this is nice because it keeps your fire small and pretty much covered. And if you need to, you can even dig a small pit and put it down just below the ground. So, like I said, this is kind of a really minimalist setup. There's not a whole lot in here. I've got, good lord, toilet paper, a little Altoids fire tin. I've just got some char cloth, a lighter, a few fire starters, and a ferro rod in there. Toothbrush and toothpaste for hygiene. A little can opener with some electrical tape wrapped around it. Oh my god. Another little fire kit. It's got a few fire starters, like the straws and Vaseline and cotton balls. So I'll show you those later, but they, actually I've got some in here. These are really nice. This is what I like to use as fire starters. It's just a regular drinking straw. You put some cotton and Vaseline, and then you use like a shish kebab skewer and stuff it down in there. You clamp the end with a pair of pliers and just take a lighter to it and burn it closed so it stays nice and sealed. So it's waterproof, pretty small. When you need to use it, all you have to do, slice it open, fluff out a little bit of the cotton, and then hit it with a spark, and it'll burn for a few minutes. The other thing about the reason I carry the Altoids tin in particular is, I'm not sure if you can see it, but there's a little hole that I put in the top, so you can take a piece of cloth, handkerchief, an old t-shirt, and make char cloth by sticking the cloth in the tin, and then you'll stick it right up on the coals, not completely in the fire because you got to be able to get it back out and keep an eye on it, but smoke will come out through that top hole. As soon as the smoke starts coming out, or stops coming out, when it's all done, then you pull it back off and let it cool off for a few seconds, and it basically dries everything out and makes charcoal or char cloth, or if you use you can use like bark shavings, and that'll catch a spark really quick. You get a nice good ember going, you wrap it in your tinder bundle, and you got a fire pretty quickly. I like to carry it. I'll start a fire with it, and then while the fire is going, I will make more to replace what I just used. So, what else in here? Got the Sawyer filter and the cleaning kit, my solar charger for the phone, and since a lot of my flashlight batteries run on it, and then my little slightly larger personal survival kit, which that's something for another video. But that's it. And aside from food, I would be perfectly content taking this out in the wilderness for a few weeks on end. I mean, obviously I'd want to take more if I could. If I was going to be out there for weeks, I'd probably want something to make, like an axe to make a little bit more substantial shelter with. But this will do the trick, for sure. If you're wondering what the first aid kit is in this front pouch with the little brightly day glow yellow little pull on it. The rope that's over here, it's a couple lengths of paracord that I've got knots every 6 inches or so, so it makes for quick hammock straps to hang this thing up really quickly. The little carabiners to clip it on are in here in the bag. So I'm going to pack this stuff up, and I will I think I'm going to go out into the field to show you the fire, since light's starting to fade a little bit, and so I'm not right next to the river or the creek, whatever. Alright, get everything packed up. Make sure I'm not leaving anything behind. Doesn't even look like I've been here. Just the idea. Aside from a couple little branches that look freshly cut. A couple thoughts while I'm thinking about it. Or a couple things to consider while I'm thinking about it. So one of the biggest factors in shelter making is where to put it. And the location that I picked, while it worked for demonstration purposes, I would not recommend setting up a shelter there if you intended to stay in it. A couple reasons. First being, it's right near the creek, which, while it's close to water and that's convenient, it's, at least in Ohio this time of year, it means mosquitoes are going to be crazy. So you want to be close enough to water that it's not a terribly long walk, but not so close that you're going to be eaten alive, because that's just no fun. The other thing, poison ivy, poison oak. It was all over the place back there. Fortunately, I am not allergic to it, so I went ahead and just walked right through it. But if you are, it's definitely something to take into account. You don't want to be setting up your shelter somewhere where you're going to lay down and wake up itchy as hell. It would not be fun. And if I were to set up a shelter that I was going to stay in overnight, it wouldn't have been right there for a number of reasons, but the poison ivy included, even though I'm not allergic to it. I walk through it frequently, but that doesn't mean that I want to test that theory too much and sleep in it if I can avoid it. Unfortunately, pretty much everything back in that area is covered, and I was just being lazy, didn't feel like going too far in the other way to look for somewhere clear. see, I've kept the 2 sticks that I used. I'll show you how to set up a little shelter without trees. Because a lot of times if I go camping or if I'm at a festival or something, especially a hippie festival, everybody's already taken the trees to hang their hammocks, and sometimes it's quick and easy just to find a spot in the field. And most people would set up a freestanding tent, but if you don't like that option, then you gotta figure out something else. So I'll go back out here in the field by the truck where there's not any trees around, and I'll set it up again. Alright, real quick, because I apparently have to go pick up Kiddo and tend to her since my ex is, I'm not even going to go into it, but real quick, I will show you this just because I don't want to take it back home with me and get cattail all over the place. So, cattail, let me see if you can see, this is pretty water resistant. The water just kind of flows right off of it. I believe the phrase is hydrophobic. But after you pour it on there enough, if it gets pretty wet, it will start to, at least start to soak up some of the moisture. But that will mostly stay on the outside. So say you can find one of these, it's been raining, give it a twist, and the inner fibers, all the fluffy stuff on the inside, will all be nice and dry. The nice thing about cattail is you can eat the root too. So if you pull it up, it's a little tuberish. Not the interrupted again. Let's try this out. Let me adjust it. Actually, see if I can get the camera a little bit closer. Hi. Don't mind me. Making the tripod shorter. Get all up close and personal with the fire. Or try to. There. Alright, so this is the, just for shits and giggles, since say it's raining while you're doing it. Not completely soaked, but damn. It catches pretty quick. It doesn't burn very long, so you're gonna have to have something that will catch nearby, but it takes a spark really easily. I should grab some grass. So, like I said, it burns out real quick, but if you can get some, let's see, some random pine needles. Well, while we're at it, since there's some around here, a couple feather sticks. The idea behind this is it just creates really fine little pieces that will catch a lot easier, and The other thing with doing this is as you get in there, the outside of the wood may be nice and wet, but on the inside it'll still be dry. So you've got a shelter set up and you're out of the rain. This works quite nicely. I usually use bigger sticks than this, but let's see what I can find.
Shit fingers, let's use this one. This one's too sharp.
This is something else you can do if it's wet out. See, once you get onto the inside of the wood will be dry even if the bark's wet. Something wants to cut right through the branch. Use a shallower angle. Alright, grab some dry grass. Just because I want to show you one thing while I'm at it. But as far as the wet stuff goes, so I showed you in here. There's these things, little straws I made fire start out of. So I carry a bunch of these. I do cut them open, pull a little bit of the cotton out and fluff it. For a few minutes, and it will get the feather sticks going. Alright, so we got our char cloth. I'm going to the camera over here. Your char cloth here, and all it usually takes is one good spark and it'll start to go. You see it's starting to, a little bit of ember going. Put that in the middle of your tinder bundle. Go. And once you get the fire going, put more cloth or more like bark or something in there. Alright. I gotta get back to the house and possibly pick up kiddo on the way. So. Alright, hello again. Sorry we got cut off earlier. I had to go pick up my daughter. Not sure what's going on with the ex-wife, but she called and said she needed me to pick up kiddo. So we had to cut the video a little bit short. Show you the little straw. See, I have one that's already done. I hope I use the rest of them. But all you need are basic like drinking straws, cotton balls, Vaseline, I use a little like shish kebab skewer to push it down into the straw, and then you need a pair of needle nose pliers, and rather than striking a lighter constantly and trying to hold it, I'm just going to use a match. Or not a match, sorry, a candle. So let me let the assholes outside, and I will be right back. We'll make some of these fire starters. Alright. I kid. They're not really assholes. Well, they kind of are, but they're dogs. Never fails that as soon as I sit down, that's when they want to go out. I just had matches. Where did they go? Oh, sorry. It's been one of those days. Really has. Alright. Alright. Now I'm going to refill this little tin. I like to have it full of the little fire starters when I go. Inside is just an empty tin. I've got a ferro rod, a lighter. I need to put a piece of hacksaw blade in there just as a little striker, but I always have a knife, so I usually use that anyway. I'm going to, I got the ones with a little flexy area on there, so cut that off. That's plenty long enough. Let's see, how many more can I get out of that? And I'll actually use these little pieces too. You can make them as short as you want, that you can still get the pliers on both ends. The longer they are, the longer they burn for. I usually just try and make them long enough so that they sit this way and I've got a little bit of space on one side. Obviously this is not a terribly quick process. It's going to take some time. It takes a couple minutes per one, but one of the things that I will usually do, I can't right now because I'm filming, unless I get Alexa to do it for me, but I'll usually put on an audiobook and sit here, listen to a book, and go ahead and stuff away. So, decent handful of straws, maybe about a little bit bigger than a quarter, about, and we'll fill your little tin. So take one. First thing you want to do is you're gonna pinch it with your pliers. Leave a little bit, maybe a little bit less than 1/8 of an inch on there, and then just heat it up. I think it's nice and flat. See if we can get it to focus on that. Come on, focus. It's still looking at me. But you've got one side done. And I will just kind of usually unroll the cotton balls. And one cotton ball will usually do 2 of these. You don't have to pack it in there too much, so just kind of tear it in half. And then 2 get the Vaseline on it, what I will usually do is take the little skewer, and that's a lot. Get a fair amount on there. Just kind of coat the center. And you just kind of take it and you'll fold it up on itself. And you will get Vaseline everywhere, all over your hands, so don't worry about trying to stay clean. It's not going to happen. Just kind of get it started. You can use the next piece to dry your hands off a little bit, and just kind of twist it in there. Like I said, you will get Vaseline everywhere, so just be prepared for that. As it goes, you get a lot of buildup right around the edges. It's okay, even if it's still there when you go to seal it. Not going to hurt anything. It'll just burn off real quick. And it also gets the outside coated nicely. Probably could have put a little bit less on this one. But slow, kind of tedious, twisting it in there. But if you're a fan of audiobooks, this is a great thing to do while you're listening. If you need some suggestions for authors, I happen to know a few. And I'm happy to make some recommendations. And so once it gets to the point where it's starting to get a little bit stiffer, a little bit harder to push in, then you can use your little skewer and kind of compress it down in there a little bit. Oh, now I'm pushing it back up. Try and push the push as much of the cotton actually down in there. It's got to be, you can't have the cotton between the pieces of plastic and the straw, or it won't entirely seal. But if you have a little bit of Vaseline, that's not a problem. So get it down in there. You could keep a paper towel on hand and wipe your hands as you go. I don't, because I don't want to waste the Vaseline. I'll just use it on the next one. And there's one. So, like I said, a little time consuming. I'm going to turn the camera off, let my phone charge, and listen to a book. And I will be back in a little while once I get a few more of these done. Alright, so it took me a couple hours to get them all done last night, but right now there's the 10. You can see I've got, guys, quiet. I've got what's called Ranger bands, and that's just a bicycle inner tube that's been cut into little rubber strips. They will burn quite well for a few minutes as well. Plus to keep your tent from popping open while it's in your bag. So I actually ended up making more than I had planned, so the lighter doesn't fit in there anymore, but full case. Let's see if I can hold it a different way. Full case, you can see the little ferro rod down in there. So there they are. I apologize that I rambled on for God knows how long it's been now. If anybody's still watching, be sure to leave a comment, let me know. If there's anything else you'd like to see or any questions you have, I'd be happy to do another video based on something else. And the dogs need to go out again. I'd be happy to do another video based on anything you'd like to see. And I'm happy to answer any questions you got. I will try and get another video done in the next few days that shows setting up the tent with, or the, hi buddy, setting up the shelter without having trees around. I've gone on long enough, and I'll let you guys get back to doing something else other than watch me talk. But thanks for taking the time to watch, and I hope you all have great weeks. See ya.